There we go. We have a cat with us this time.
We do. We have a special guest,
Farley.
whose ears are just poking up in a very sweet way.
Oh, are we good here?
A little crooked, so we'll just wait for people to come online.
Yeah.
Let's get the swatch all ready. I taught a class on fixing mistakes last week, so
Okay, cool.
the swatch has been deswatched.
Excellent.
Alrighty. So welcome back, everybody. It is week 4, the final week of the Ranunculus.
It's the final countdown.
It's the final week. This is Caitlin. I am Emily. We are your hosts for this evening and the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. So how's everybody doing with their sweaters?
This is not the one I'm reading. Oh, I'll dig out the one I'm working on.
Katie and Julia are both finished. Yes.
And B apparently has been knitting them with us too, and she finished 2.
She's finished 2
amazing.
of them. I told you it's an addictive sweater.
It's a very addictive sweater. I forget every time I knit it. So this is where I'm at.
Okay.
Last week I did some really short little cap sleeves like we spoke about. Just popped a little bit of ribbing on there, same number of rows as for the neckline. And I just started doing the ribbing this evening after work on the body of my sweater. So I think I have about 7 or 8 rows left.
That's good.
I'm just going until the end of the yarn, and then I'm going to bind off loosely, and we will be good to go. And I'll have a lovely new sweater just in time for this warm weather that's arrived.
Yeah, and I'm wearing my love note today.
Yeah.
Katie wore her ranunculus and I wore my love note, and we were wearing the same kind of skirt too.
Oh, the new fabrications uniform.
Yeah, I guess it's that. Yeah.
And I saw a couple people on the weekend who also seem to be making great progress on their sweaters. So
Good.
Hooray, hooray! What are we going to talk about tonight, Caitlin?
So tonight this is week 4, so that we're kind of getting to the end of this.
Yep.
I think we're going to talk about binding off.
Yeah.
Different options for binding off.
Yeah.
And sleeves.
Sleeve magic, because there were a couple of different choices in the pattern. And so we'll just dive a little bit into some of the instructions on how to complete the sleeve as written in the pattern, since last week we spoke about all the different ways you could throw the pattern out the door.
Yeah. We love the pattern.
Yes.
Yes. I think I might, for my the one I'm working on now, depending on how much yarn I have, I might do the I-cord sleeves.
Ooh.
Like maybe make them like 3/4 length.
I love that.
I'm not sure, because I might have enough yarn to make full sleeves, but I might not. So we shall see how that goes.
My mother was asking me in the car this week how many ranunculuses I have, and I was like, oh, and I also have 2 sweater quantities for ranunculi. They've been earmarked.
Yes.
Okay, so let's dive into it. Let's talk binding off.
Yeah. So what is the bind off that they use? They use the twisted rib in this one?
Yeah, so the bottom border, the
hem.
brim, thank you, the hem. You know, the word is staring at me right now on the sheet in front of me. But, okay. So the hem that they calls for the same kind of ribbing as we did for the neckline, which was a twisted rib. So knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1. And then they have a couple of different options for binding off the hem. Let's start with hem techniques first.
Yes.
And then we'll talk binding offs.
So I knit through the back loop. The cat is getting involved. Okay. We will move him if he needs to be moved.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, Beanie.
Hi,
Susie.
It's knit through the back loop. So you get the same kind of effect as the neckline.
Exactly, that knit stitch sort of sits a little higher up on the fabric.
Yeah. And I haven't actually done that one. I have done the broken rib stitch for a lot of my sweaters, just because I like the way it hangs on my body. And basically that is a knit 2, purl 2, and then the next row is just knit. And then knit 2, purl 2, and then knit.
Yeah.
And what you get is this kind of, it almost looks like a corrugated rib.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. And I find it hangs more, not loose, but it just kind of hangs straight.
Yeah. It's
rather
line.
than tightening in at the hemline.
Which a traditional 2x2 rib will squinch in the most, and then a 1x1 without twisting will pull in just a little bit. 1x1 with twisting will pull in even less. But yeah, the fabric that you've got there is going to pretty much lie straight.
Yeah, and that's my preference.
Hi, Roxanna.
I think.
Oh, good question.
Oh, for
Nancy.
the hem, yes. So did I change my needles? I believe that I just used the same needles. Yeah, I don't think I went down.
And you know what? That actually makes me have a question, which is I wonder how much your gauge changes with broken rib versus a regular rib. So the reason why you would, if you were doing like a traditional rib, you would go down a needle size because moving your yarn back and forth between the knits and the purls is going to add just enough yarn to make that fabric looser than the rest of the body, which is what you'll normally see on a sweater. You go down a needle size.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I did for mine. I don't think I honestly thought about it that much. I just was like, oh, okay, go down.
I think it says to.
Yes, it does.
It does say to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, you will sometimes get a ribbing that's a little bit puffier. Yeah,
or it'll flare out a little bit. It'll look a little too loose by comparison. I definitely did that, especially when I was learning how to knit, like in the round and doing hats and things. Like, I'm not buying 4 sets of needles.
Yeah.
Eventually I bought the 4 sets of needles, but ooh,
that's a good idea. Split hem.
Yeah, Nancy's thinking about doing a split hem. That is a great idea.
I have thought about doing that for different sweaters, but I haven't yet because I'm not sure how I would do that. I think
you would just do half
and
then do half.
Yeah.
And you could even do a slight high-low if you wanted to. You could do the back a little bit longer.
How would you do the edges of that? Because ribbing can curl in a weird way. So you would want to do like maybe an I-cord edging.
Yeah, or slip stitches. Flat. Yeah, and that's a really good point about it cinching in a bit. I like your idea of doing the broken rib. If you like the visual of the rib, but that will cinch in less. Yeah. Or doing like a seed stitch.
Yeah, seed stitch would be nice.
Yeah, something that still has texture to it, but that doesn't have that sucking in that the rib does.
Yeah. So far, those are the questions. Yes.
Yeah. And then, if people wanted to, they could do any other sort of fun stitch pattern that fits in there. I'm pretty sure I did a sweater a while back that had like St. John's wort or something, which is apparently a stitch pattern. Oh. And that was the band instead of ribbing. That's cool. I would, if you're looking up stitches like online or looking for border stitches or something like that, check to make sure whether it will roll on you. So like do a little swatch if you're going to get like really funky with it. But
someone else Nancy talked to did short rows at the back to give a little backside room. Yeah, you could do that. You could also, if you do a split hem, you could make the back longer. Yeah. I have a couple of store-bought sweaters like that.
Yeah, so you could do it just a flat, or you could incorporate the short rows and have more of a curved back, like a button, like a lot of button downs. Yeah. We'll have a more sculpted back.
Okay.
And then that's a question for you from Susie.
Yeah, so for the sweater, you used broken rib stitch. What rib did you use for the collar? So I just used knit 1, purl 1.
Yeah, just a regular 1 by 1.
And because it's knit 1, purl 1 at the top and it's knit 2, purl 2 at the bottom, they're different anyway. Yeah. So they don't look mismatched. If that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what'd you do for your sleeves?
Yeah, for the sleeves. So for this one, I actually did. This is my heavier DK weight. And I didn't do any decreasing for the sleeves until I got to the cuff. And I did I decreased maybe by 10 stitches, 5 to 10 stitches, because I wanted it to kind of come in a little bit. I don't like when sleeves get really baggy.
I catch them on things.
Yeah, me too. And
fairly clumsy.
And because I roll my sleeves up a lot, I wanted a lot of ribbing on it to to give it more strength, I think.
Yeah, and better recovery if you're pushing it up.
Exactly.
That's coming back down again.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So I did quite a long section of ribbing.
And it's 1 by 1, right?
It's 1 by 1, and it does squeeze in quite a bit. And I just kind of experimented with it until I had until I had the thickness I wanted. I think I might have knit a little bit and thought that was too big or too small, and I pulled it back again and redid them. Yeah.
I have heard fairly good piece of advice, which is if you're a little bit worried about mixing and matching stitches like that, if you have something in 3 places, then it looks intentional. So either have your cuff match your collar, or have your cuffs match your hem.
The hem. Oh, that makes sense.
And then and then it's like, oh, I made a specific choice for the one, and the rest of them kind of go together in concert.
Yeah, because you want it to look. I mean, you could have any look you want, but if you want it to look cohesive and really intentional, that's a really good
Same thing if you run out of one color and you need to sub another color in.
Yeah.
Hem and cuffs, and all of a sudden it's a choice.
Exactly.
Not that you had to run back and they were out of that color anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then I bound off in pattern for that.
Yes.
So knit 2, purl 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, what I've done for pretty much all of them. I don't know for sure. There's a couple of different elastic bind-offs. The pattern includes 3 different bind-offs. So the designer talks about a traditional bind-off method, which you knit your knit stitches, your purl stitches, you slip one over the other, and then you work another one, slip one over the other. If you find that you tend to bind off tightly, well, coincidentally, you have a larger needle size that you use to knit the body of the sweater. So take your larger one and knit those 2 work those stitches, pull over. It'll be just a little bit looser. Then the designer also talks about a twisty bind off, which I had never tried before. Actually, I have not yet tried, but I did watch a video about it this evening, so I feel relatively briefed.
Okay.
It's quite involved in my opinion, but we will give it a shot.
Yeah.
And then there's also an I-cord bind-off option if you do sort of more of the balloony, floaty sleeve.
I think I'm going to do that for my pink one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll demonstrate that at the end. And then I think we also should probably do a little refresh on how to pick up stitches, because we didn't cover that last week, did we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so I can walk you guys through how to pick up stitches in two different ways, with a crochet hook and without.
Cool. And then we're also going to talk about sleeves.
Yes. Yeah, okay, yeah. So let's finish up sleeve techniques, and then we'll dive into some demonstrations to wrap up this fun adventure we've been on.
Yeah.
So we talked about cap sleeves last week.
Yep. The one where you bind off.
Yep. So we demonstrated the sort of floaty bind off, and then we also talked about doing the long sleeve version and just picking up as directed and just going right into some ribbing, which is what I did on mine.
Yep. And that's what I did on this one, which is very similar sweater. What are people doing for the sleeve hems? I'm doing the long sleeve version, but with a short row sleeve. Short row sleeve.
Oh, yes. Okay, so for the sleeve, got it. So if you're doing like a shorter version, I would, depends on the impact. So Nancy has a question about if you're going to if you followed the long sleeve instructions last week and had your stitches on hold, and then you took them, picked up under the arm, started knitting your sleeve wherever you want it to land. It's not going to go the full way. What's your ideal bind off? Or I guess what's your ideal stitch, and then bind off. I think the twisted rib looks really nice.
Yeah, if you did that for the collar, that would be really nice.
Yeah. Because it will be quite close, so those will look, like they're working together, I guess, in concert with one another. I also would recommend, if you went for that particular option because you didn't want a big floaty sleeve, then I would maybe do like a regular bind off with a larger needle if you're worried about being tight, as opposed to a specifically stretchy bind off like Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy or anything like that, because those will have a tendency to flare a little bit and they won't look as fitted.
You might have more of a ruffled look. I wonder, I haven't tried this, but I wonder how an I-cord might look.
That would also be super cute.
If you wanted to keep them cap sleeve but have a finished edge on it.
An I-cord bind-off would
An I-cord bind-off would be really cute.
I will say, having done that on sweaters and collars before, after the fact, so it's probably a little bit tighter, I would experiment a little bit. Try using a larger size, so try using like your 6mm or whatever you use to knit the body to do that I-cord edge, and then don't start weaving in your ends until you try it on, because you may have to then take that out and go up another needle size, just because the I-cord is really not a stretchy bind off. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you try it on before you do all the hard work of weaving in your ends.
Yeah, and I'm just picturing.
I think it would look lovely though.
It would look really nice. Yeah. Yeah, I might try that.
Yeah,
on my next
I did a sweater once with, it was gray with a yellow, like a mustard contrast I-cord.
Okay.
On all the little ends, which looked really cool.
Cool. Yes, Nancy did the twisted rib for the collar. Roxana says, I finished the body of mine and did a 4-inch half twisted rib on the same needles. It looks boxy and I love it in the summer. Yarn I'm using. Yeah, I love a boxy sweater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like when things are hugging and tight. Yeah. Yeah. So I like a nice boxy fit.
Okay, so we've talked about the cap sleeve option. We've kind of touched upon the balloony. I'm gonna call it the balloony. It's bishopy. I don't know. It's a larger a larger sleeve that is included as the long sleeve option. So you've got quite a lot of fabric and then you sort of cinch it in at the end. You could choose to do just a plain
I-cord?
Yeah, but just like a plain cuff. Or you could do some short rows to lift one end a little bit more than the other, and you should be able to see that in some of the patterns, so that it will almost like cup in one direction, although I wasn't entirely clear whether it cups what part of the arm wrist gets cupped slightly, but there is an option to do a little bit more of a sculpting. And I think if you were doing like a really floaty kind of a yarn, something light, so like a fingering weight or something with mohair, that could look really nice, because you would get sort of that structure, and then it would get anchored in place with the I-cord.
Okay, yeah, because the I-cord will kind of be a little bit tighter. And so it kind of it comes in creating like a bishop.
It really gets that nice bulbous nature. I don't know. I'm pulling these words out of nowhere.
Because I-cord is not an I-cord bind off is not a super stretchy bind off.
It's very anchored as a stitch.
So Susie says, if you wanted to do short sleeve, a bit of knit, then rib or 3/4, would you do any decreases? So for the 3/4, it depends on what the finished look you want is. For the short sleeve, I didn't do any. I did probably about an inch of knitting and then an inch of ribbing.
I did a row of knitting. I was playing yarn chicken, so I was like, you get a row, and now we're doing our rib.
But if I was doing 3/4 inch, I probably would do some decreases, because your arm tapers. Sorry, I'm gonna clothesline you. So your arm kind of, well, depending on the shape of your arm, right? It tapers a little bit, and you might not want a hanging loose sleeve. Or maybe you do. So I guess I would consider that the shape of your arm and how you want it to fit. And I would do probably, figure out.
There's a little bit of math involved.
There's a little bit of math involved.
Measure basically the difference between where you're starting with the number of stitches and where you want to end. Figure out how many stitches that equals to with your gauge. So measure your sweater. And then figure out, okay, I need to decrease, say, 10 stitches over this amount, and then figure out, okay, that's 20 rows, so I need to decrease 1 stitch every 2 rows or something like that. Or 2 stitches every 4 rows, if you're going to balance it around the end of row marker. But Caitlin makes a great point. Yeah, you might want it to be fitted until wherever you're going to do your 3/4. Sometimes this is more like a half to a 3/4. Or I also think putting in that I-cord might be kind of cool for like a 3/4 sleeve. Where like,
I think I'm going to try it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, like billowy, and then it sort of anchors.
Yeah.
But you want enough space so that it can move around on your arm and be
because when I'm at home and when I'm working, I'm always rolling up my sleeves, and I want it to look nice when I have it rolled up. Right?
Oh, Andrea's got a good point there.
Yeah. The short rows, then the I-cord bind off looks really ballooned. I had to undo it as the sleeves weren't long enough. Okay. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you find with the I-cord? Did you find it like cinched in quite a bit? Or did you think it was going to be a certain length, but then the I-cord kind of shortened it? Kind of
the length, yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
And then sort of so we've got all the different options that are included in the pattern. We have the cap sleeve that we talked about, cap or short. And then there's also the tapered, so you could follow Caitlin's idea of tapering slowly right to the end and do it just sort of like a standard sleeve. Andrea says, you decrease a row before that.
Okay.
Before the I-cord.
Okay. Yeah.
Which probably cinches in quite a bit.
Yeah, so if the sleeves weren't long enough, so you'll knit a little bit longer before you do that. You can pull back and cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we dive into some demos? It's always weird at the last one. You're like, is this it? Did we get here?
Right?
Did we finish?
I want to know if there's anything else people want to know.
Well, how about we do some demos?
Yeah,
and then
maybe people can.
Andrew's redone them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll set up for Emily to do a demo.
Some demos, and then we'll see if there's any last questions. And then we'll plug our next knitting-related event, which is going to be in person, which is very exciting. Oh, now I'm centered on screen. I don't like it.
Okay.
All right, I'm coming around.
Oh my gosh, you're too funny.
Okay, let me just ditch this stuff on the floor. Okay. So let us start with.
I'm going to move it over a bit.
Look here. Am I on screen?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So let's start by talking about how to pick up stitches, because that'll be the next thing if you haven't. Nope. Sorry, so I did my sleeves first, right? So I was like, oh yeah, that's the next thing. No, technically binding off your body is the next thing that you're going to be doing. So let's start with binding off your body. Okay. So we could do a couple different versions. So let's demo. Let's start with everybody's favorite bind off, which is your really simple one. Basic knitted bind off or ribbed bind off. So knit one, and then in this case I'm going to purl one, and then pull one over the other. Okay, so that's your standard bind off. Let's do this Lori's twisted bind off.
Okay.
Which is a thing that I haven't encountered before, which is always exciting. That's why I love this pattern. Every time, something new.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, so I've knit one. I need my yarn. Let's pretend I knit one and didn't bind one off. Okay. I then need to, get ready folks, I put this on double pointed for a reason. I recommend if you have a double pointed in the same size that you also do this. You're going to twist the needle counterclockwise.
Oh my.
For one whole rotation, it says. And then you're going to bring the yarn forward, and you're going to purl one. You're going to grab and pull over just like normal. And then you're going to twist it back around the other direction, one rotation.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? And then you're going to knit one and pull over. And then you rotate again. So I don't think I'd have the patience for this.
No.
But more power to you if you do. And then
I mean, it's something to learn. It's something. It's a new challenge, right? Some people might want that.
And then I move my hair back.
Yeah, that's a lot of.
It's a lot of finagling and
fancy footwork.
In the video,
Susie says, "OMG, I'm dizzy."
Yes, true. And in the designer video, they were doing it with with a circular, and they were doing magic loop stuff. So they pulled the needle, they pulled the cord out, and was rotating the needle around and flipping it.
Yes, and they had like a marching band behind them.
Yeah, there was a zoo, monkey. Yeah, no, it's a lot. And so, without having done this before, I think that that twisting your needle around is going to like lengthen the stitch a little bit. Give it a little bit more yarn, make it a little stretchier, much like some of the other stretchy bind-offs do.
Yeah.
Here's an alternative stretchy bind-off that I use, which is I think it's the Jenny Surprisingly Stretchy.
I know there's one called Jenny Yeah. I think that's one I use for socks.
Pretty sure you knit 2 and then knit them together through the back loop. Whoops. And then you knit 1 and then knit together through the back loop. And so by adding that extra step of knitting those 2 together instead of flipping one over the other, you're just adding a little bit more yarn into the mix, getting a nice stretchy edge. But it does have a tendency to flare a little bit. I've used it for socks before when I do toe-up socks.
Yeah.
I don't really care because they're on my feet. If people are looking at me that closely, I'm going to kick them in the face.
Yeah.
So who cares? It's a sock. But if it's going to be on your body or near your neck, you may care.
Yeah.
Experiment.
Andrea says it gives a zigzag look. Yeah, I think that's similar to the one I use for my socks.
Yes. It is very stretchy, which is very convenient when you are trying not to cut circulation off to your body.
Yeah.
So we've got we did the Lori's very twisty bind off. And then we also did a little bit of Jenny's. Let's try this I-cord bind off. So there are like some general I-cord bind off instructions. Oh my, Farley is just wants to be on camera. I am very much enjoying these meows. I do not know if anyone else can hear them, but they are fantastic. Okay, so let's just undo this real quick. So there's a general I-cord bind off, and then there are some very specific instructions, which I think is to give a specific size of I-cord along the edge. So I'm going to follow what's in the pattern. But you can do I-cord bind-offs of different sizes. And also, I didn't pick this stitch up properly. Okay.
I'll go get something that has an I-cord bind-off so people can look at
so you know what you're looking at. Okay. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do to set up your I-cord bind-off, so you've got all of your live stitches. I've done this on shawls too, where you've got like 500 live stitches. So you're going to start by adding a few stitches, because what's going to happen is you're going to essentially build up this way and then work a tube along the live stitches. So you have to start by building up in one direction. So we are going to use a knitted cast on to add 5 stitches to our needle. So we go in, wrap the yarn, pull out, and pop on the needle. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And I think the reason why they have you do a knitted cast on is because it's not going to be very flexible, which is great because we don't want a big loosey flip-flop on the end of our I-cord. Okay, so now we are going to knit 4. So we put on 5, right? So we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we also put 1 more stitch on. And we have this next stitch, this stitch number 6 is from the original project. So what we want to do is knit those 2 together, because then that will decrease 1 stitch, okay? So I'm going to knit those 2 together, but through the back loop, if I can make it look, I'm not even trying to make it look graceful at this point, I just want to make it done.
Yeah, well, just to give the...
Yeah.
the
knit 2 through the back loop. Okay, and now we have 5 stitches, and we've decreased 1 off of our live stitches here. And then because we're doing an I-cord, if you've never done an I-cord before, you keep knitting in the same direction. You don't ever turn your work. So we're going to slip all these 5 stitches on the right hand needle. We're going to slip them back over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to repeat our instructions. So let's knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're going to knit this 5th stitch with the next stitch that was on our live needle through the back loop again, like so. Cool. I split my yarn. Classy, so classy. There we go.
This purple yarn's seen a lot.
It's seen so much. I really should retire it at this point. All right, and then we're gonna move our stitches over again. And you might want to give a little tug, because what's gonna happen is, because we keep sliding them over and knitting them and sliding them over and knitting them, this is going to slowly curl in on itself to create like a tube along the edge of the work. Let's bring your piece in to show you what we mean.
The bonuses of this is that there's actually a different color, so you can see the I-cord edge.
So this is what we're building, and you can see,
You might want to go a bit closer.
you can see hopefully that we've got these little knit stitches in a line, and this knit fabric essentially curls around the edge.
So it makes a really nice, clean edge.
Yes, it's not as flexible as a regular bind off. So I can see some of you, I can't see any of you, but I can imagine seeing some of you go, ooh, that looks pretty. Just keep in mind that if you're doing a shawl, you may want to accommodate for it not being as stretchy if you're going to be blocking it. So I'm going to do this one more time. So I've slipped all 5 over again. Let's do another knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then knit 2 together.
Yes. Emily says this is for the cuff. Yes, it's for the cuff. It's for the balloon.
Yes, it
balloon
is.
Sleeve cuff.
Specifically for the cuff. Thank you. I was going to say and the body, but no, that would be quite tight on the body.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to keep going.
It's for the balloon sleeve. So the balloon sleeve is quite balloony, and then it it kind of comes in
and anchors
it and yes, Andrea says when using DPNs you can just slide the stitches instead of passing them back over.
Exactly.
It seems like a lot of steps, but once you get going in a rhythm of it,
and because this is for sleeves and not a shawl, you're looking at 40 stitches instead of 500. So you're looking at an evening instead of a week, which is great.
This shawl took me quite a
while. Were there any other demo-y questions before I come back? Can we chat about how to finish your sweater?
No questions yet.
Wonderful.
So maybe...
Oh, picking up edges. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Caitlin just did like a double tick at me. I'm sorry. I forgot. I was going to do the picking up of edges as well. Okay, so let's move on to that then.
So this is when you go to pick up your sleeve stitches.
Exactly.
So on the underarm, you'll be picking up those sleeves.
You'll have put all of your stitches when you split for the sleeves on a lifeline. The first thing you're going to do is put those stitches back on your needle. So you could be using DPNs, you could be using long circular, the one that you use for the body of the sweater, to use magic loops. That's when you poke out the cables so that you can get a small circumference, or you can do what I did, which is use a small circumference needle, so 16-inch circular. So you'll get all those stitches onto the needle, and then you're going to have this weird gap that will be the underarm section, and you're going to want to pick up, as directed, the number of stitches. And so most sweaters will have you start in the middle of that section and pick up half of them, knit the sleeve, and then pick up the other half, and then put your beginning of round marker right at the underarm so that it's hidden, just like we did for the side of the sweater.
At the center of the
Yeah,
underarm.
exactly. So it'll be the part that is not the least likely to face anybody. So picking up stitches is a really great skill to know. When you're doing it for something like a neckline, which we may or may not be doing something related to that in the fall. We'll talk about that more then. But when you're picking for your underarm section, it's a little bit easier because you really only have a small chunk of space. If you are worried about doing it evenly, I mean, you want to aim for evenly so it's not tight on one side and not so tight on the other, then you could take this fabric. So let's imagine I've got sleeve stitches coming on both sides, fold it, figure out where my center point is, and start there to pick up your stitches. So for this, you may want to acquire some sort of crochet hook or those stitch fixers that we have in the shop. This one doesn't really have a pointy end, the stitch fixers do, but this is a closer engage to the gauge that I'm working on with the needles and the yarn. So couple of different ways to pick up stitches. So the first way you can do is to take a crochet hook. I'm going to go sort of under the V. You can kind of see a V from where it was cast on, sort of. So I'm going to go under both legs of the V. If anybody crochets, it's basically like crocheting. And the most important thing is that you are consistent.
Yeah.
So if you can pick it under one leg, you can pick it under two, you can go in sideways. Whatever you do it so that you are consistent across all of your stitches and nobody's going to know what you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go under with my crochet hook, and then I've got some lovely contrast yarn here, and I'm going to pop it, leaving a tail, pop it over the hook, and then pull that through, kind of like doing a slip stitch in crochet, I suppose. Yeah. And so now I have one loop on my hook. And then because I don't hate myself, I'm going to do one more before I start transferring them to the needle, because then something will actually hold the needle in place. So I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to go under the next one. And I'm going to not use my tail. I'm going to use my working yarn. I'm going to wrap around the hook, and then I'm going to pull through, and now I've got two loops. And now I can start moving them over to my needle if I want to. There we go. Okay, and then push that needle out of the way slightly, and I can do the next one. Grab, wrap, come through, pop it onto the needle. Remember when you are doing this that a happy stitch has the right leg in the front and the left leg in the back, so just make sure they're oriented correctly and you haven't twisted your stitch. Brain fart, I just completely spaced out. So that would be how you pick them up with a crochet hook. If you do know how to crochet and you tension your yarn in your left hand, it's very easy. You just go into the stitch, grab, and pull through. Now, you can also pick up stitches without a crochet hook.
That's how I do it. I pick them up just with the knitting needle.
Yeah. So if you're a bit worried, you could put your first needle in, go in, wrap, come back out. If you're like, heck, I'm going to live life large, just stab your needle into the fabric, wrap your yarn, and come back out. Yeah, I will usually pull my work slightly so that it's easier for the needle to come back out again.
Yeah, that's how I do it. And and because they're not live stitches, you're just picking up into fabric that already exists.
Exactly.
If you make a mistake, you can pull it out and no worries.
Yeah, it is a very liberating part of the sweater. If you make a mistake, very easy to undo. Just take it out. Yeah. And then, so I would recommend leaving, maybe, this sweater's not so bad, but if you're doing another sweater, leave a slightly extra longer tail, because then you can use it, if you do have holes on either spot where you pick up, you can use that to sort of seam those holes in.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so that's picking up stitches. Do you have any burning questions before I come back up to the...
No.
Hot diggity.
But we could talk, well, I don't think we can really demonstrate it, but we could talk about it, different ways to avoid holes. Avoiding those holes.
Yes. Yes. Pick up extra stitches. That's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do. So on either side.
Can I borrow your sweater for a second?
Yep. On either side of the armpit, pick up stitches. Whoopsie. I pick up extra stitches. So what I do, so this is where my armpit is.
Yeah, that's where the stitches get picked up.
Yep. So I will pick up maybe 1 or 2, depending on how wide the space is. Because my live stitches will usually start somewhere up here and here. So usually I'll pick up maybe 1 or 2 extra stitches on either side.
Yeah.
And I make a mental note, or I write it down if I think I'm going to forget, how many stitches I've picked up extra.
Yep.
And then when I come around on the next row, I make sure to decrease them.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yes.
Or on the one row after.
Within 1 or 2 rows, so that it's not like a pucker, but
And then the other thing that I sometimes do is if there still is a slight hole, or if there's just a little bit of a hole, what I will do is I will actually put my needle in that gap, and I will grab an extra stitch.
And pick it up and put it on the...
Yeah, almost like a make one left. Or make one right.
So like to twist that extra gap of yarn.
So I basically pull that extra piece of fabric up,
twist it,
and I knit it together with the next stitch on the needle.
That's clever.
So it kind of tucks that little hole closed.
And also almost fills it by adding in the ghost of a make one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's never really an extra stitch. It's a make one.
But immediately
resolved.
Yeah.
So that's another way to do it.
That's very
I would
clever.
only do that for like one stitch. I do that with socks when I am picking up for my afterthought heel.
Okay.
And there's only like a little gap.
Oh my god.
I will do that.
I'm totally gonna try that.
Yeah. And like you can't even see it. I think you can tell where I did that. Where I picked it up right here.
It's your armpit.
But it's a tiny hole compared to like what it could be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I really never have to weave in my ends.
No.
By doing those two things, I rarely have huge holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I just duplicate stitch around.
Great. Yeah.
And be done.
Yeah. So you'll start knitting your sleeve from there, and then
you have to knit a second one. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but yeah, you do kind of have to.
So let's.
Most people do, unless it's a choice that you're making.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be a choice.
It could be.
Let's do that. Oh, I bet we could make bank off of a sweater pattern that's like the Sleeve Island sweater. It's like a high-low, but it's your sleeve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So, what was I going to say? The picking up the sleeves. There was something I was going to say after that.
I have a thing, but it can wait.
I'm blanking on it.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about finishing your sweater.
Yeah.
Specifically blocking. We talk about this in pretty much every knit along, but it's because blocking is really important.
It's really yes.
I mean, I say that.
Yeah, it's very important.
It is important. Raise your hand if you definitely have worn a knit without blocking it. Hello.
I actually yes, blocking is magic. I have steam blocked before. My mom lent me one of those garment steamers. I have done that because I really wanted to wear my magnolia sweater the day it was done. I wanted to wear it immediately.
Oh, and if you're going to a knitting festival, that's like an old thing. I don't have time to block. You're kidding me?
No.
Or you've got the fan blowing on it days before.
So I literally just blocked the lace part.
Oh.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
But blocking will do a beautiful job on your lace. Yeah. All these holes will open up really nicely.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of people, if they've never knit lace before with holes, well, I guess all lace holes, holes with, and they don't know that if you block it, that's how you get that movie magic. That your lace coming off the needles, unless you are a robot, maybe even if you're a robot, will not have those perfectly spaced lace holes. That it really is the magic of wet blocking.
Yeah. We do have a video about blocking.
We do.
And yes, we have a video about blocking. And again, I'm like having a brain fart.
Would you? I mean, I wouldn't use blocking wires on this. I don't think.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't bother.
You could use T-pins if you wanted. If you're finding that your yolk is looking a little cinched still, even after it's been given its bath, you could use T-pins to sort of encourage it to stay more open. But if you're going to do that, just be mindful of the fact that your yolk is like a band, and you don't want the band to be significantly bigger than the rest of the sweater, because then it's just going to hang a little bit weird. So what I would recommend is my turn, blocking out the rest to make sure that it matches and you get that nice lean line.
I'm having a lot of blank moments today.
That's okay. I feel like we covered the essentials. Weave in your ends, or if you're too lazy,
that's
pack them in.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
Weaving in your ends. I was going to say weave in your ends, but don't cut them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Until after you block your sweater.
Yes. You probably will want to cut them after that. Fun fact, I blocked a shawl this time last year in my best friend's apartment after she moved out from across the hall. And I just cut the ends that I forgot to cut after blocking it this morning.
That's fine.
So it was cold. So, the age-old adage of just tack your ends in and nobody will notice.
Yeah. It's on the inside of a sweater. It's fine.
Yeah, this has an inside. So, any last questions before we say goodnight and good luck? Sounds much more serious than that.
I hope you guys bring your sweaters in, because I would love to see you. If you are finished or if you were not finished, I would love to see it.
Yes.
Somebody was in last week. I guess they were watching, and so they went to say hello, and I was in the middle of like a quilt math problem, and I wished that I could give her more of my
you were like
my attention.
Oh, no.
She was so
yarn,
sweet.
Math.
Yes.
What do I do?
Yeah.
And are you there on weekends, Caitlin?
I am there sometimes on Saturdays, not every Saturday. But if you need to see one of us, just send a message to the shop just to see if we're in, because I'm in during the week, but not every day, and not until closing. So,
and I'm there sporadically, not as often as I used to be, but far more than I probably should be. But that's a really great. No, we're not closed on Saturdays. We're open 7 days a week, baby.
Yeah.
So, on that note, about when you could maybe bring your ranunculus in and we could all see it and admire it together as a group on June 11th, I believe.
I think it's June 11th. Yeah, Knit in Public Day.
Yeah, Caitlin's going to fact check me on that. It's Worldwide Knit in Public Day. And we are going to be having a blast. Just like we did last year.
It's the Saturday.
Is it the Saturday?
Hold on here. You keep talking.
Caitlin's gonna keep it. I know about the advantages, don't know about the day. So we are going to do what we did last year. So long as the weather is nice, we're gonna set up lovely tents in the parking lot, sort of behind the shop, like the private parking lot. And we're gonna sit and we're gonna knit and we're gonna hang out and have a great time. And
yeah, it is the 11th.
It is the 11th. I think that's a Sunday.
Yeah, right? It's a Sunday, and Mary Derry is
coming back. They came last year for a couple of hours. It was really great. If
it was
you like
amazing.
Knitting, if you like ice cream, they have gluten-free alternatives. They have vegan alternatives.
I can't wait.
So, real fun, drag the family and then be like, okay, see you later. I'm knitting with my buddies for a couple of hours. You can come back and get more ice cream when you pick me up.
It was so fun.
I had a blast. It's like, this is the best day ever. Yeah. I'm getting paid to talk about yarn. and have ice cream.
I know.
So hopefully we'll get to see you there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be there. I'm looking forward to it.
We also do knitting classes. I don't teach the knitting classes, but we have knitting classes.
Yes,
Emily's one of our teachers.
Sarah is a lovely, lovely person.
Yeah. So if you ever want to build your skills, just check out our classes. We finally resolved our tech issues that we were having.
Yeah. And and I think, they'll become a little more sporadic in the summer as people go on summer vacations. But I'm already thinking about the fall. And, we're going to hit the ground running. So it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah. Yes, Vina, it is on Sunday. That's what it says.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you, if you follow us on social media, we will absolutely be posting in advance of it. And then also it will be on the website if it's not already. Yeah, it will be on the website.
Yeah, it seems like it should be Saturday, but I checked because I was putting the events on the store board that we have.
Yes, and somewhere in the city, Katie is being like, I feel like I should be online right now.
Yes.
Anyways, so that is a very long-winded way to say thank you all for joining us for this really fun time, and we look forward to seeing you in person with your Ranuncs. And we also will hope to see you again in the fall for another knit along.
Yeah, I wonder what sweater we're going to be making.
No, I don't know. Or what lemur monkey accoutrement, which is the sample that I made.
Oh, yes.
That was a great expression on your face.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
You
So
made a sample and it was quite small.
it was very small.
Yes, Andrea. The worldwide date is the 10th. So we will double check on that.
And confirm it on the website.
Confirm with Katie because maybe it was written down incorrectly where I was looking. So we will find out.
Yes.
And if you want, you can sign up for our newsletter also, and that information will be posted there.
Oh, it's like the highlight of my morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Yeah.
This was a blast.
It was fun.
And we'll see you at the next one.
All right.
Bye. Happy knitting.